Welcome to the Path Forward podcast. I'm your host, Augie Gillarducci. The podcast is brought to you by Second Opportunity. And my guest today is Ruth Mercy. I know her story, and I know it's terrific, and I really hope you enjoy this. But as she's talking and explaining what her life has been, I'm going to be learning just as the audience is. So, Ruth, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a real honor to be a part of this and to be a part of the incredible thing that you started, Augie, and what you're doing for those that are in the inside. And as soon as I came across your website and your work, it just really touched me, because a lot of what you stand for and what you've gone through and what you've pulled from that is just my core. It is exactly what I think and what I believe. And so it was special to connect with you and then to meet you in person and see just how authentic you are and how much you care.
Well, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. So I'd like to start. Let's go in the more of the beginning, and I'd like to talk about just a couple of minutes on where you grew up when you were young, what you enjoyed doing, play sports, school, combination of things, and kind of talk us through that until the point that you started to do the work that we're going to talk about today.
So I've traveled a lot, all grown up. Kind of grew up in Colorado, just outside of Denver. And so I love the outdoors, spent a lot of time fishing with my dad, hiking in the Rocky Mountains, camping. And that kind of carried on into my teenage years and into this day, where I love to be out on the road, hiking. I've run marathons and triathlons, and I just love the outdoors. I love to be in God's country and just absorb everything that has to do with mountains and fishing and everything. Later on, we moved to Las Vegas, and that's where I work. I waitress there, a couple of jobs to fund what I do inside prisons. And so spent some time there, but have traveled around to different places and different situations. Actually, up till now, I've been in probably over 400 prisons all around the world, from some of the most dangerous, some of the high security prisons, some of the renowned ones in the United States, Europe, and South America. I suppose that's jumping ahead. I'll get back to the first one.
That's all right. That's all right. So let's catch the audience up to what type of work do you do? At 400 prisons is unbelievable, and frankly, doing it throughout the world or different parts of the world to me is amazing. I would at some point love to have the opportunity to do that, but at this point, I'm just trying to get into as many places as we can in the United States system. But what type of work do you do inside facilities?
So I work with a group called Deep Heart. And what we do is a real special performance, about 2 hours, 2.5 hours long. And it is a combination of dance, music, theater, magic, rap, hip hop. As we have traveled, there is an international flavor woven through, from Spanish flamenco dance. I actually dance Irish step dance. Part of my heritage is Irish. And so a little bit of everything. And this gives us a platform to bring something really special to the men and women who are suffering behind bars. Through that, we weave a message of just hope, second chances, the fact that we all fall, that we all fail, that we're all the same. We love the Lord, we love Jesus, but not tied to any specific church, religion, or denomination. I see a lot of error, a lot of flaw in some of the religious system in the churches today, where there's just this separation of judgment and of us versus you, and come this way, learn this, do this in this system, and that's God. And that's not how I see it at all. I see him as a father who comes to each of us where we are and who we are. And so these are the things that we're sharing through our performance of just brotherhood, of unity, that there is always hope, that there is always a second chance, whether we are serving life in prison or whether going to be reinstated into society, that there are things we can take out of our suffering that are gold. And so this platform of a show and putting on a special event inside prisons gives us a real special space where it's not just coming and talking or a specific, set program that some people are familiar with, but it reaches beyond that to people who might not be interested in a program or who are kind of used to, a chapel or a service, and opens a lot of doors from us. And our work is free of charge. So we're able to offer it to the correctional system with no strings attached. We bring our own equipment, we bring our own stuff, come in, set up, and do the performance.
Can you talk about some of the places in the United States that you've been in, some of the facilities or correctional systems that you've worked in?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a number that are just so impactful, from Sing Sing, in like Michigan City, the Indiana State Prison, that these facilities are over 100 years old. And so you're going into just such ancient history and so much suffering that's behind those walls. Walking into Rikers Island, for example, you cross the bridge and you get into this massive jail and you just touch a whole nother dynamic of suffering of men waiting for their sentences who have just got in, trying to absorb that and figure out how to move forward. Angola, a place that's massive. It's like an entire city complex that was built on so much suffering and racism and slavery, transformed, to what it is today. But just the deep oppression you feel there of a majority of men facing life sentences. And to go in and to put on an event and see the difference in the men before and after is really remarkable, because I don't know, to me, the most important thing is to just be with them, to just visit them. That it's not, oh, hi, we're putting on a special event that comes across kind of like, okay, you're doing your thing, you're coming, you're leaving. But I guess I just see myself as just right there with them, right there alongside, that there's no walls, there's no boundaries. And so my favorite part is talking and interacting before and after and hearing each story and each backstory of what they've gone through. Some of the prisons in California, Folsom, and some of the ones on the coast, Pelican Bay, just places that are so isolated. We did one in Florida just with the same time we were at the ACA convention and I met you. We did a performance there. We had to take a shuttle to the front gate because it's like back in this swamp. And it's just, they feel that every day, that isolation, not having their loved ones visit them because it's too far and it's too expensive. And so to get to be a person that visits them and tells them how much they matter, they're not forgotten, they're not seen, is just a very, very special thing.
I don't want to get ahead of myself too much here, but I'm sure that there are many people listening to this or watching this right now throughout the country. I have to say that, and I haven't shared this with the audience recently, but I think where we're at now is we're available to more than 1 million incarcerated individuals on tablets throughout the
Wow.
country, this podcast. And it's an amazing thing to me. It's also disheartening from the standpoint to think about that many people who are actually incarcerated.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's only half the population
2
that's
million,
incarcerated. But
2 million in the
yeah,
US. I know.
yeah.
And then
So, but
5 million children and their families. And you think about, we're talking millions of people that are affected.
no
And
question.
it goes so forgotten by like society, by the government, of all the things that get attention. It just breaks my heart sometimes. And it's so frustrating to see just how forgotten those that are incarcerated are as far as actual help. That's why I love what you do.
Thank you. And I see that, knowing the system from the inside as I do, I would say that most people that are watching this right now are thinking, man, it would be so great if that group came here, to whatever facility they're in, because the things that you were just talking about resonate with, I think, almost the entire incarcerated population. So, in the event that somebody talks to a staff member and says that they would like to, have them contact you to see if you can arrange to work in that facility, to come in that facility, is there a way they can reach out to you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We are always looking for open doors and open opportunities. And as we fund ourselves, we try to like group, so like we hope to work in New York for a couple months and then go down the East Coast. And so I would take any invites and then kind of group them and order the details. But you are welcome to post my cell phone, my email, and our website. And we also have a very high quality magazine specifically for those that are incarcerated that's real special. And I can supply that either PDF for tablets and also occasionally donate actual boxes of the paper magazine, as well as our entire performance on DVD, on video. So, like, say it's a facility we're not going to be able to visit for a while, I could mail a DVD, which they can play on the CCTV or as a special event for those that are behind bars. But it's possible we're going to work out of the country in the near future, but then next fall we plan to start possibly in the East Coast and work across the United States. And so please, anyone who would be interested or who could pass my contact to warden or social worker who would organize such a thing, please feel free.
And your magazine, is that presently on tablets?
Yeah. Yeah, it's currently on most tablet systems throughout the country, from Adobe and Securus,
Great,
and specific states available. You can search Deep Heart, two separate words, and usually it will be found.
great. Okay, so now I need to go back a couple of years because this has become a major part of your story. So you started doing this work inside prisons about 12 years ago, and then a couple of Christmases ago, give or take, something happened. And will you take the time to kind of walk through for all of us that are, because this is the first time that I'm hearing it, but will you walk through for all of us that are watching this what actually occurred? And then after that, we're going to talk
Yeah.
about how that's impacted your life and the work that you do.
Absolutely. Can I just jump back 1 second because I missed just a
Sure.
story of how I first worked in a prison. It was actually an amazing story. So I used to work more with like youth, high schools, orphans, foster kids, and we were actually in Colombia, in Armenia, working there throughout the school system. And a high-ranking official had been present at one of our shows and asked us if there was any chance we would visit a prison. And it was the first time I had ever, even kind of thought of that. And so we were like, yeah, sure, absolutely. And, there was just so much unknowns, especially in the third world, being an American woman going into a Colombian prison, what are you going to face? What's it going to be like? The movies, the stories, the shows. And I'll just never forget the day walking in for the first time and just touching like a subculture of very special people and just immediately realizing my own ignorance of just like kind of the stigma. Okay, bad guys, good guys, they're there because they did something bad and they're doing, you did the crime, do the time, all those expressions that are thrown out, and just realizing how false and how many lies are around those. Some of the most beautiful, talented people I've ever met are behind bars. And so that day in Colombia, to just start shaking their hands, hearing their stories, talking to them, just brought out a world of understanding and realizing that these are my people, that I am united on brokenness and on failure, and that we are all the same. And from there in Colombia, just one thing led to the next. We actually met the president at the time of Uribe. We worked with both sides of the drug war of the FARC in the times when they were really intense. And we worked on both sides of realizing both the victim and the perpetrator, and realizing the gap, the joining between both of them is that there is understanding and there is compassion and there is a backstory. And so that's kind of how we started. And then from Colombia, we traveled all the way down through all of South America to Brazil, and then back into the United States, working in correctional facilities here, over to Europe next summer. So that's how I started. I just wanted to put that in there, because it was just so impactful to me, realizing what these men and women are like.
Thanks for sharing that. This is working in this type of field. Um, there's got to be some passion for this. There's got because this is not a career path to become wealthy.
No.
It's a career path to try to make a difference, to try to positively impact people when they are going through a very difficult time and probably at or near the low point of their life, and to try, what we're
Yep.
trying to do collectively right now together is to bring a message of hope and positivity to people that there's some pretty
Exactly.
dark days on the inside.
Exactly. And that's what brings me to my story that happened 2 Christmases ago, because it was one of the worst times and darkest days of my life. So I'll just quickly recap the first part. We were in California working in the prisons there all the way up and down the coast. We had a whole tour scheduled to work there. And as Christmas was off for the holidays, as I said before, I love the outdoors. We were working in near the San Gabriel Mountains of California, just outside of LA. And there's a peak called Cucamonga Peak, about just less than 9,000 feet. Um, and I just take that time out there just to pray for all of those that I've met behind bars, all of those that are suffering, and to just be with God. And so it was a spectacular day. I left real early. I left at 5 in the morning under the stars, took my bike to the trailhead, and then from the trailhead started hiking up. I was in a t-shirt. It was jogging most of it. I wasn't doing any like crazy rock climbing or anything like that. It was just a nice trail. Um, Beautiful day. And I got to the top of the mountain, and I didn't spend that long on the top because I wanted to get back and celebrate Christmas and watch the Dallas Cowboys game with my dad. And, my mind was just in a happy place, excited for the day and for Christmas, beautiful snow on the trees, the smell of pine, just utterly invigorating. And so I took some pictures at the top and headed back down. And then there were switchbacks on the side of the mountain, and I came to a spot that on the way up, no problem, I had passed it easily. But I think somehow in the time difference that the sun had turned that to ice. And all of a sudden I realized it was very slippery and the incline was really steep. And I had my walking sticks, and I started to really focus and realize, okay, I got to take this seriously. And that's my last memory. I don't remember the seconds before the fall. I don't remember what led up to it. I just remember my next memory was regaining consciousness, slowly coming to, and waking up to a lot of blood that was all over in the snow on the tree. And as I came out of the fog, I was trying to figure out what happened. Why am I sitting down next to blood? I thought maybe a little animal died or something was hunting. And then I touched my face and realized it was my blood, and my head was open. And I just move a little bit, and just excruciating pain through my whole body. I was shoved up into a tree. A hiker who had come behind me told me I had fallen over 200 feet. And except for this tree that I slammed into, I would have obviously kept going and perished. Um, and he had been able to put a ski cap on me that stopped the bleeding on my head, and we had packed it with ice to stall the bleeding, and he had called in the rescue. And I remember hearing the helicopters overhead, and it just was like, I was like, no way do I need a rescue. I'm constantly outdoors. I've been in a lot of little tight spots and fixes, biking things, and you just kind of get through it. But to think about needing a rescue by a helicopter, it just hit me so hard. And I remember asking them and saying, no, 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 I'm fine. I can hike my way down this. How bad is my head? And he said, no, I can see the skull in your head. It's very serious. It's very bad. Um, and so it
Hmm.
took 4 hours for the helicopter to be able to find me. And he had on a neon orange hat, like those hunting hats, and he started waving the hat around as we were in the forest. And ultimately, that's what led to our rescue. And so, anyone out there that has to wear that bright orange color, I give you a shout out, because that orange color saved my life. That's like my new favorite color. But eventually one of the men in the helicopter who was part of the search and rescue team rappelled down a cable to me, and he told me that there was just no way they could get me there, that I had to hike to another spot to get out. um, I didn't know that my neck was actually broken at the time. I didn't put that all together. I knew something was serious, but not how serious. And so, to think about moving at all was just like I couldn't, much less standing and walking. But I just had no choice. And sometimes that's what life gives us. It's just we're in a horrible spot and we have no choice. We can't just sit there. We have to get up. We have to make the next move. And I remember just begging Jesus, help me, have mercy on me, get me out of this. I tried to brace my head as good as I could and just walk parallel on the mountain as carefully as I could, bracing myself against the rescuer until they could hook on to a cable and pull me out over the helicopter. And I remember holding on and just swinging back and forth over the helicopter until they got into the chopper. And then I was still thinking that my head and the stitches was the worst of it. I'm thinking, okay, I'll get home. I'll see the end of the game, be back for Christmas. I remember texting my family in the helicopter because I had no signal the whole time on the mountain. And I had been unconscious a long time. And I know that they were very worried because I was at least 3 hours overdue so far. And just saying, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to tell you this. I'm in a helicopter. I'm on my way to the hospital. I'll tell you when I get there. And in the emergency room, um, so the doctor came in and said they were trying to wash the blood out of my hair and they were moving me. And the doctor yelled at them and said, stop moving. You broke 3 vertebrae in your neck. One more small movement and you could be paralyzed. And it's just kind of like those slow motion movement moments, when reality meets where you think you are and it hits so hard. And I know so many of you men and so many of you women that know moments when it's just like everything shatters. 2 seconds ago, things are great, and you're thinking about your future and your family and your life and your job, and all of a sudden, boom. And now you're dealing with a whole nother reality. And how do you pick up the pieces? You get a long sentence, the gavel drops, your family leaves, and you're trying to figure out how to go on. And to me, that was one of those moments where I was like, are you sure you have the right patient? There's no way. um, I don't want to get too long and too many details, but I had to require a real serious surgery. You can see the scars across my neck. It was actually the first time this doctor had done it, where they went in through the front and put a plate and screws to try to repair the vertebrae. And it was Christmas, and so I had to wait a while for the surgery. I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, I couldn't move. I just laid in the ICU completely still. Um, and the unknown of that surgery was just so scary. I remember texting what I thought could be the last text to my family, and just telling them everything I wanted to tell them, telling them how much I love them, telling them how to continue on, scheduling performances in prison so that they could keep going, and just being, not knowing what was going to happen. And a lot of time just praying, just that Jesus would take my life and use my life and be with me in those moments. One special time was I was looking out the window and it was raining. It was Christmas morning. And my brother, he couldn't come in to visit, but he texted me a picture of a rose, just a beautiful rose, and it was really actually growing outside the window. I was looking out there in the hospital, and that idea just touched me in that moment of a beautiful rose growing through so many thorns and in so much pain. And that's just so much like our suffering and the things we go through, that like scientifically a rose has to have those thorns to grow, to get up, to get over walls. And sometimes we see our suffering as purely bad, and we just want to close that door. Hey, it's a tragedy, and move on. But in that suffering, in those things we go through, roses are growing. Beautiful things are coming out of that suffering. I'm going to get back to that in a minute. But the surgery went fantastic. And I remember waking up from the surgery and being able to move and being able to turn my head and realize that I had made it, that I wasn't paralyzed, and just an overwhelming amount of gratitude. And since finally, like 3 days after, walking around the hospital and realizing how much I had, and to still be alive, that not a day goes by that I don't take a breath. Like everything shut down. I couldn't breathe through my nose after the accident. I had to be on a machine. I had bitten through my lip. You see all my nice scars right here, broken my jaw, and just even now, any pain I deal with, like I still have terrible migraines and pain and a lot of stuff, but I'm actually grateful because I can feel that pain because I'm not paralyzed. And sometimes when we switch our perspective and we trade it out and realize, yeah, this really hurts, but I'm so grateful I'm not paralyzed. I'm so grateful I can move and I can feel. Um, and so that's the basic, basic story.
Wow. Well, first, thank you for sharing that. Um, it's one of those things that, as you tell it, I imagine you relive it to
Oh,
some
every
degree at least.
time, every
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Yeah. It
Um,
was incredible because when I was in the hospital, I started getting contacts from news outlets and news medias. And because it was such an incredible rescue, they called it the Christmas miracle, because other people tragically had perished in the same area, in the same mountain, due to extreme weather in California at the time. And Lester Holtz picked it up, and it was an international story. Like I said, they called it a miracle that I lived. And this news actually hit all around the world. Um, and I would later go into correctional facilities where men and women had seen my story and seen the first start, but not how it ended. And it was incredible there in California, meeting some of the people who were like, oh my gosh, I saw that story on the news. I saw how you fell. And now I got to stand in front of them and tell them how the story ended. One facility, I actually met someone who was related to the pilot who rescued me. Another facility, I met a gentleman who actually closed down the trail right after my accident. And to have this connection of falling to the bottom of the mountain, that's why it's like I don't really see it as my story, but our story, how we fall, how we fail. And you can't let what happened define who you're going to be, but you can flip it and use it for your advantage. Like, as crazy as it sounds, even if I could take it back, rewind, undo it, I think back to that morning all the time. Why did I have to choose that? Why couldn't I just stay or go for a run instead? And you can't help that. You can't help but relive that past and relive those moments. But then there's a place where you say, I accept it. It is what it is. What happened, happened. I did what I did. I am where I am. And it's in that place of just humility, of yielding, where God can actually use it to our advantage. Like I was saying earlier, I see God as a father who is so near and so present and comes to us specifically in our worst moments, that he's not this distant entity out there somewhere waiting for us to really get good, act good, talk good. Okay, then he'll listen to us. He's not a floaty cloud out there somewhere, or what we see sometimes today in Christianity and religion and society of like a cliche, an idea, a slogan, everything's going to work out. That's not what got me off the mountain. Some saying, some bumper sticker idea. But it was Jesus. It was his presence that came to me, that helped me, that lifted me there. And he says, I did not come for the righteous. I did not come for the healthy, but for the sick, for the broken. And so it's like, in a crazy way, if we cannot waste our suffering everything we've gone through. I know that sounds odd because, we want to overcome and get through it. But if we can, like a diamond that's being fashioned out of those depths, out of that heat, a pearl that comes from sand, take what we've been through, just like Augie's done, of making something from it and realizing, yeah, I went through this, but I'm going to let that build me on the inside. Because the outer stuff, it doesn't matter as much as the inside stuff. And in his redemption, God can use all we suffer on the outside to build something priceless on the inside, something that a brother or a sister right next to you might need, that you can touch them, you can give them, you can take from you and give to them because you're so much bigger than you realize.
Ruth, thanks on that. I'm in facilities all the time. I mean, every week I'm in a jail or a prison someplace, and I tell guys that, men and women, if you're feeling that you're in a rut and things just look really dark, what I used to do, and I stumbled upon this, but I learned that it worked, is I would just show kindness to somebody else. And it started to make me feel better about myself. And, because
Yeah.
on the inside, there's always somebody that has it worse, just like in society itself. I'd like to just go back because I'm thinking, if I'm in the audience, one of the questions I have, there's many I could ask you about the event in the fall and what have you, but the person that stayed with you or found you and put the hat on and packed the ice and had the neon cap that he was waving, do you maintain contact with that person?
Yeah, yeah, him. There was actually a total of three people on the mountain. The gentleman, his name was Eric, and then an Asian couple, a married couple that were older, not much English at all, but she actually gave me the coat off her back, and kept me warm. And then the gentleman, he's like an avid hiker, and he's the one who called the rescue. And I text them, and obviously every Christmas for sure, and send them cards and gratitude, as well as my rescuers. I actually stay in contact with the doctor who did the surgery. He lets me text him. He almost lost his home in the LA fire, so it was amazing because he lived there, but it was spared. And then the rescue pilots as well. I always send them cookies or cakes or cards or anything, and just immensely gratitude. Back to what you said about kindness, it is no little thing, because it is like magic. It really does. You can be going through the toughest time and just so deep in it, and just look up a little bit and see someone right in front of you, reach out, and all of a sudden you're healing each other and you're touching each other on this broken ground and realizing, okay, yeah, but his mom just died and he's going through hell. Even the guys that might treat us bad or act out, or like, okay, why did that guy yet snap at me or angry at me, or the staff or a guard, or man, this guy's so hard to deal with. All of a sudden you realize they've suffered, they got a story, they got a backstory. And so that kindness and that just reaching out is not like a small little afterthought. It's huge. It is the purpose of life, to love, to touch another soul. And so, yeah, that's what I so focus on, to anyone serving long sentences or even life. Life is here. Life is not where they say we are, where they put us, or our outward circumstance, or what we deal with on the outside, but who we are on the inside. And that can manifest itself in so many ways of love, of kindness. Like, you'll meet guys, who like kind of the badass, tough guys, and, like, to talk about love to them, it's like you're not talking about this shallow, flaky kind of distant love, but to care, to be willing to say, hey man, you need my socks, here's my pair of socks. You need this, here's a snack I got you from commissary. Can I actually listen? Like, really listen. We all want to tell our story, but who's going to really listen to our story? And it's tragic sometimes when I go to a facility, 1,000 guys are there, and nobody really knows each other's names. I'll be in a room doing a performance for a couple hundred guys, and like, who knows who's who names. And the isolation is just so sad and so tragic, because there can be a brotherhood right there that helps get you through that battle, that helps get you through those front lines, like a football team or like the guys in the military. You bond together and you make it so much farther.
What I'd like to do now is ask you to take a couple of minutes, and I know you've shared a lot of these thoughts, even in the last little bit here, but I'd just like you to look into the camera and talk to the men and women on the inside. And you are an excellent guest for this because you go on the inside, so you know what the environment is, you know what the feel is, that type of thing. But what kind of words of hope or inspiration would you like to leave them with?
Thank you so much. And to every one of you that hears me and that hears my voice, I know you don't know me personally, and it can sound kind of odd to say, but I really do love you and I really do care about you and pray for you. And know that where you are does not define who you are. No matter what you've been through, no matter what's happened, the worst, the things that you think, oh, this is so bad. Why did I do this? I did deliberately do it. I didn't deliberately do it. All the threads of your story. It's like the back of a tapestry sometimes. You just see one side. And, I know it can be 2, 3 in the morning and you're trying to figure out, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did I go there? And on the other side of that is you becoming you, who you're meant to be. Like I was talking about that rose. Every one of you is a rose growing beautiful behind those bars. Sometimes you just don't realize it at the time. And so don't give up. It's like, I know I talk about these outer scars. I'm covered in them. I also, a separate accident shattered my leg. I got a rod and screws in my leg and a lot of outer pain. But sometimes the inner pain is worse. Those scars on your heart, those scars on your mind, remembering things, dealing with things that just hurt so bad. And just be open to the fact that God is a father and that he sees you. Those things you can't really tell anyone and you think no one knows and no one sees and no one understands. He does. I mean, God left heaven. He left those streets of gold and he came to our earth in Jesus. He walked our dirty streets. He suffered. He didn't talk about suffering. He suffered. He knew our pain, our scars, the thorns that he bore, the wounds he carried, emotional, memories, crime, everything that happened, all the sin of the nations he bore on himself. And so that's why you can trust him to go to him, not as some flaky, distant hippie you see sometimes in shows and movies today, where there's just like this, bleached teeth, tan Jesus that's just so clueless. And you're like, what does he have to do with my life? I'm talking about real nitty gritty life, that he knows you, that sees you. I know sometimes we just tune out to God and we think, like you're flipping through the TV channel and you hear some story about a bird watching club in Minnesota, nothing to do with you. So you change the channel, and you turn it off. And we do that to God because we think, what does he and heaven and the Bible have to do with me here in this cell, serving 10 years, dealing with my family, dealing with parole and all these issues? But gentlemen, ladies, he has everything to deal with it because his world is you. You are his world. He loves you more than you can imagine. And no matter what you've been through, he wants to forgive you, to heal you, to help you. So just hang in there. When it gets to be too much, take a breath. Or the shock, if you're just getting in and you're just facing it, how's this going to be? How's this going to be? Life is not defined by what we have, by what we buy, by all the things you lost, even the things you think you're missing, out here, the freedom, a job, a family, good food. You know the reality. There's just nothing. I work as a waitress in Las Vegas, and I've served a lot of the hot shots, from Floyd Mayweather, the Kardashians, all the athletes. I'm their waitress, and so be really nice to get the tip. But sometimes I look just beyond their face and just beyond that facade of, okay, you've got it all. You've got the perfect girlfriend and the house and the job, and you look in their eyes and there's just no life. There's no substance. And the men and the women that I've met behind bars have that priceless gift called sincerity, called reality. And so don't make light of what you have. Don't let what you're missing stop you from what's right in front of you, becoming who you're meant to be. And it can be the best thing that happened, as crazy as that is now. And I know it takes time sometimes to realize these things and to process these things. But like I said, just be patient. Take the opportunities in front of you. Consider getting a Gospel of John, reading the words of Jesus. Consider learning a language to pick up and learn Spanish or Italian, as my brother Augie's done, or just a thing to use that time, music, a talent. Realize that you are a source of light and hope and life for those around you, an instrument. Do a little talent show, do a comedy routine, come up with a special night, a special day, and you will be shocked to find how your perspective changes. And that's the greatest purpose in life, to touch another person and to realize, yeah, it's bad. Yeah, you're going through it, but there is just, it could be so much worse. Some of the things I've seen in Brazil, it's just mind blowing. Just places where there's standing room only, where there's open sewage, and the smell is unbelievable. Or you're dealing with, by the time the food gets to them out in the jungle, it's almost expired because of the heat, because of the conditions they're facing. This one we visited, an electric storm had shorted out the pumps, which shorted out the water. So the men had no water at all. And they're thirsty and they're going through hell. Another facility was like a dark dungeon of a castle, and I went in and I asked the social worker about how many times do they get to see the yard, like do they get to see it once a week. It was a crazy complex with all these layers, and the yard was also indoors in this dark dingy spot. And she was like, once every week, once every 7 years do the men get outdoors. I'm not exaggerating, I'm not making it up. And it just always shocked me and stayed with me that they don't even get to see the sun. And so, ladies, gentlemen, count the little blessings you have. Taking a deep breath, smelling the wind, seeing the grass, having programs and contact and access to expand, to learn, because I know there's so much you don't have and you want, but there's also so much you do have and can be grateful for. And I take heart, know that me, your sister Ruth, will be out here praying for you and thinking about you guys.
Ruth, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to visit with us today. Your story is remarkable. I think your commitment to helping people on the inside is absolutely remarkable. And even after you went through what you went through, you resumed the work that you were doing inside of prisons. And as you've explained it, it's made you even more committed, more passionate about the work that you're doing. So I appreciate that. I appreciate our audience, men and women on the inside, family members on the outside that are watching this, those that have been on the inside and are currently on the outside and might be struggling to get some traction. I appreciate you spending a little time with us. And as I've said all along, my mission in doing this is to bring hope and inspiration so that 30 minutes after you start watching this, you feel just a little bit better than you did when you tuned in because you've heard a story that's inspired you in some way. So thank you for joining us on the Path Forward podcast. Thank you to our guest, Ruth, and we look forward to the next episode.
Thank you so much. It's been a real honor, a real privilege. Thank you for the opportunity. What you do is quite special. And anyone who has a chance to hear you and to reach this is lucky to have you.
Thank you.